Hi everyone, Comic Book Reviewer here. This time reviewing on Shrek Forever After. Now, as you know, Shrek Forever After is a 2010 computer animated comedy film which was meant to be a sequel to Shrek the Third and was intended to be a final towards the series. And I know, the point of Puss in Boots was meant to kind of be taking a break from the story and focusing on a different character. And I think the point of The Last Wish was just showing where Puss in Boots and some of the characters were now. And I think, given the fact this was intended to be a final, you can tell they really wanted to try and wrap this film up perfectly. So the premise of the film is meant to show how Shrek has now kind of become this big-time celebrity and family man. We do kind of see how, he does get tired of the fame, trying to kind of balance his new responsibilities. And we see how, after an emotional outburst at his children's birthday party, we do see how he lets out all his anger, his feelings, and resentment to Fiona. And I know nostalgia critics said this was out of character for Shrek, but one, put yourself in his shoes. Imagine being increasingly stressed out and kind of letting your anger and your temper getting the better of you. You would not be okay. So we kind of see how, Shrek mates Rumpelstiltskin, and it's kind of implied that this Rumpelstiltskin in the fourth film is meant to be a totally different character from the one we saw in Shrek the Third. It's kind of implied his name Rumpelstiltskin is an alias of sorts, and he kind of might have multiple kind of names and identities. And it's kind of hinted at that he used to work for the fairy godmother and probably learn about doing an alternative deal thing and kind of struck out on his own. And we do kind of see how, Shrek basically strikes a deal with Rumpelstiltskin and ends up in an alternative reality where he's now feared by the villagers, and this is where we see how he learns to his dismay and horror that Rumpelstiltskin conned him and basically stole the moment from when he was born. And we do kind of see how, other characters have been affected by Shrek's actions as well as Rumpelstiltskin. And we do kind of see how, Donkey's now kind of this pack mule. We kind of see how Puss in Boots is overweight. And we do see Fiona leading a ogre rebellion. And this is where we see how Shrek realizes all the good he had and wasted it on being selfish and ungrateful and taking things for granted. I think the moral of the story, I would say, is appreciating what you have. Don't take things for granted and realize the good things you have before it's too late. I think the problem, I would say, it does feel like the film copies a bit from the first two Shrek films. Like, obviously, Rumpelstiltskin's a bit like the fairy godmother, being kind of a con artist. And it's copying a bit from the third film, where instead of the villains, it's from other fairy tales, it's a whole bunch of witches. I think the problem the Shrek films tend to have is kind of copying off the other films. And I get this is the sort of writer's way of saying, hey, remember the films? Do you want to watch the films? And do you want to kind of see how well we're doing? Which isn't a bad idea, but I think, I always kind of feel the point of doing film sequels is setting up new tests and challenges, but not trying to copy off too much. I think a lot of films tend to do this while not adding anything original. And it's going to kind of have the moment where Shrek is going to try to fix things with Fiona, and it's going to kind of screw up on him. And I think, for the most part, as a final, it's kind of weak, but at the same time, it does give a sense of closure. And I think at the same time, it shows you characters have now kind of moved on. Some characters are happy with their new sort of places in life. And we kind of saw how, Shrek in the end was able to give everyone back their hero. And that was ended up being Shrek. I think, well, yeah, as a final, this was definitely the weakest. And yeah, it does feel like after the third film, you can tell they were trying to strengthen up their ante. And I know there is talks about doing a fifth one, and yeah, The Last Wish was kind of hinting at it with Puss, Kitty, and the sort of dog kind of going back to the kingdom of far, far away. So I think as the final to the Shrek films that were intended, I think this one definitely deserves thumbs in the middle. Well, it's not a bad send-off, it just doesn't really work as a great film. And my thoughts on the Shrek films are that, yeah, they're kind of weak, but at the same time, they do start off good. They still try to kind of keep things interesting. I think the problem is they just kind of copy off sometimes from each other. But I think the Shrek films still deserve two thumbs in the middles. While they're still good, you can tell the plot just seems to kind of copy and paste things and not really going too far in that. So, Comic Reviewer here, signing out.